What's the easiest choice you can make? Window instead of middle seat? Picking a vendor who sends a great gift basket? Outsourcing business tasks you hate? What about selling with Shopify? Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your online shop stage to the first real-life store stage, all the way to the did we just hit a million orders stage. Shopify's there to help you grow. Whether you're selling scented soap or offering outdoor outfits, Shopify helps you sell. Wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/try. Go to shopify.com/try now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/try.
You're listening to the Archaeology Podcast Network.
You are now entering the Pseudo-Archaeology Podcast, a show that uncovers what's fact, what's fake, and what's fun in the crazy world of pseudo-archaeology. Hello and welcome to the Pseudo-Archaeology Podcast, episode 129. I'm your host, Dr. Andrew Kinkella, and tonight, the Gunung Padang Pyramid. Hey, guess what? It is totally, utterly not a pyramid. All right, so all I can say tonight is why. Why am I dragged into this? Why am I dragged into this non-controversy, this non-traversy with our friend Graham Hancock? Man, you know, I had planned. You know what I had planned for you guys? I was gonna do one of those like easy, fun, funny podcasts about like silly people of the past. Those are, I'll do it next time. But I was in the mood for something light, something a little light. But then, man, I started seeing this thing come up on my various media feeds, this Gunung Padang pyramid thing. And so, what is this? It's a quote unquote pyramid in Indonesia, right? Except for one major fact. It's totally not a pyramid, but we know this, right? So why is it coming up this week? Okay, this is why. Now, there's a bit of a backstory here. So Gunung Padang was featured on the first episode of Graham Hancock's Ancient Apocalypse, right? The Netflix show that came out the better part of a year ago. He goes there and he talks about this place that is supposedly this huge pyramid in the middle of the jungles of Indonesia, except it's not. It's a natural volcanic outcrop, right? It does, though, have some archaeological structures on top of it. So what he's doing is he's bastardizing the truth, right? There are real archaeological structures on top, which are cool, and we'll talk about those later. But he's saying that everything underneath it was built up too, and it's actually this massive pyramid, which it's not. It's a natural mountain with a little bit of actual archaeology on the top. That's it. So that's what he argues, and it's obviously just utterly foolish, but you would think that would be the end of it, right? He just argues his dumb idea, and then, hey, Ancient Apocalypse is shown, and then we move on with our lives. But 3 days ago, friends, Graham Hancock tweeted, and I quote, he says, episode 1 of my Netflix series Ancient Apocalypse showcases Indonesia's Gunung Padang, possibly the world's oldest pyramidical structure, and honors the work of indigenous geologist Danny Hillman Natawajaja. The Archaeo Mafia were furious, but now vindication. Okay, that's his tweet, right? Oh, and there's so much good stuff there. And after he has the word vindication, he has a colon, and then there is a link to an article from a magazine, or really an online connection called Sciencealert. And when you go there, there's an article about the new radiocarbon dates, basically the new research that's been done here. And from there, it skips you over to a scientific article in a publication called Archaeological Prospection. Now, we'll go over that in a minute. I will say today that I am flipping between a couple different articles on my computer and my phone as well. So you're going to have to excuse me if I have to move around for a second. Yeah, just deal with it. It's just what I have to do. Okay. So in terms of Graham Hancock's tweet, first, dude, I think you heard it. I get to be part of the Archeo Mafia. Now, finally, I'm part of some sort of mafia. I was never able to be part of the real mafia. I mean, a couple of my family connections, they might have, a little bit been, but me never. But now, dude, I want the t-shirt. I want the Archeo Mafia with an arrow pointing up at my head. The Archeo Mafia. Oh God, I love that. Right. And apparently the Archeo Mafia were furious. I was furious, man. Actually, I wasn't furious so much as I didn't really hear about this at all and didn't care. I think it should read, and the Archeo Mafia didn't care as usual. P.S. There's no such thing as the Archeo Mafia. That would be more honest. So, this is obviously just to trump up Graham Hancock's own stuff. He is an inveterate self-promoter, and that's just, he's made up this whole thing, this fake battle, us against him. But we don't care about him because he doesn't do real research and he doesn't add anything to the historic or archaeological record. He's a charlatan who is out for himself and makes up stories. Yeah, the end. People like me do the hard work and add real history in the only way it's possible at certain places, through hard, difficult, scientific archaeological research, which he doesn't do at all. So what comes from this? So what's his point, right? So he's why is he vindicated now? What's the deal? So the backstory here has to do with the scientist who came up briefly there. His name, again, his full name is Danny Hilman Nadawajaja, right? And he has been working, he's an Indonesian guy who's been working at this site for quite a while now, right? I would say, I believe for over a decade, at least. So he's been out there for a while. But what has he found, right? What new scientific insight has been found to vindicate Graham Hancock? Well, my friends, you're just going to have to wait until we return.
Chicken tacos should only be trusted to chicken professionals.
That's where we come in. Introducing Zaxby's new chicken finger tacos. One comes with pico de gallo and creamy chipotle ranch. And the other comes with bacon, lettuce, tomato, and avocado ranch. Chicken experts since 1990. Chicken taco experts since now. Order yours today in the Zax Rewards app. Woo, saucy! Zaxby's.
Ready to level up your career? Text DISH to 44043 now to dive into a world of exciting technician opportunities at DISH. From cutting-edge technology to a supportive work environment, DISH offers the perfect platform for your success. Connect with us today to discover how you can be part of a dynamic team driving innovation. Connect today and join the DISH family, where innovation meets opportunity. Text DISH to 44043 to kickstart your journey towards a rewarding career.
And welcome back to the Pseudoarchaeology Podcast, episode 129. I'm still your host, Dr. Andrew Kinkella, and we are talking about the Gunung Padang non-pyramid. So where are we at here, right? When we left, we need to know what the new information is. And I do have to say, before I get into it, that, it serves us right. You know why? Because when Graham Hancock originally came out with this a year ago, on his Netflix special, let's be honest, those of us who are part of this podcast, we laughed at him. We scoffed at him. And again, while we're being honest, we guffawed. I definitely heard some guffaws out there. You know who you are. Guffawers out there. And so he is having the last laugh right now. So what do I mean by the last laugh? So it really boils down to this article in this journal called Archaeological Prospection. Now, I hadn't really heard about this journal before. I think this is a smaller journal. I'm not here to poo-poo an archaeology project who publishes in smaller journals or that kind of stuff. I've done that kind of stuff. And so I got nothing against the actual journal itself, but the article, man, I got major problems. And I find that it's sad that something like this got through. What I don't get here is, where were the peer reviewers? Like, how did this get through? So what it actually is it's basically an article that says they've done a bunch of new carbon-14 dates at this site, which they have. And they kind of lay out here's how old the carbon-14 dates are. And I think the oldest ones are like 25,000 years. They're saying that the original pyramid was the first parts of the building began at 25,000 years ago and then layered on after that. And then that's really what the article is about, showing that these dates are indeed great. And this is a classic thing that not only just pseudoarchaeology, but bad researchers do, is they double down. I think you've heard me say this before. They'll double down on some little sciencey part, right? In this case, it's carbon-14 dating. Now, I don't have any problem with their carbon-14 dates. And you're like, what, Kinkella? You're saying that those dates are actually 25,000 years? I'm like, sure. But they're not dating anything that has anything to do with human beings. They're just dating stuff in the soil that was burned. They're dating things like a forest fire from 25,000 years ago. That's what they're dating. So remember that carbon-14 has to be organic material, and they're just digging into a hillside. Basically, they're digging into a natural hillside. And so as you go down every so often, you will find little shards of stuff that you could date. So I'm sure the dates are fine, but they have nothing to do with people. They just have to do with like geological layers, if that makes sense. There is no proof, zero. They're literally digging into a hill. There's not like tons of bricks down there. It's none of that kind of stuff. They do find there's like a void. And Graham Hancock talks about this in the Netflix special. Yeah, because sometimes, especially in a volcanic environment, yeah, there's voids down there. You know, gas gets trapped and you don't have fully solid rock. It wasn't made by a person. It's not a tomb. I mean, it is, you guys, it is just idiotic. And I'm shocked that it got this far. It's kind of a joke. You know, I'm like, wow, dear Archaeological Prospection, you might want to double check once or twice because there's some funny stuff getting through. So this is just, again, it's just like totally laughable. There's nothing to do with reality in this. You know, it's that classic. I think this is a version of a straw man argument, right? Where you're talking about something separate. You are angling away from the real argument, which is, you have no evidence at all that people were there or any construction was taking place of any kind. You are dating parts of the Earth. And since the Earth is 4.6 billion years old, yeah, you could get some pretty old dates. So what we're really looking at, what Graham Hancock is saying vindicated him, is just a horrendous waste of everyone's time, which is classic Graham Hancock. Like, this is just a spiral into nowhereville, right? We aren't learning anything new. It's just, we should be doing something else. Now, this comes out, and then as I touched on before, there is a more like popular article that comes from that in this arena called Sciencealert, which I'll talk about a bit later. But what I find is really difficult with situations like this is finding real facts or real articles, because that's what so many of us want, right? We're like, dude, well, then what is the real deal? with Gunung Padang. Like there is structures at the top of it. Like, what is this place? One of my favorite articles on this, I was cruising around, and one of the nice things that I hope I can do for you, you know, as an archaeologist, I can tell what's real online and what is just, you know, a bunch of false BS. There is on a hotcupofjoe.net, there's a guy named Carl Feagans, and he is part of the fraudulent archaeology wall of shame Facebook group that I've brought up before. Right. And Carl wrote this great article that he did just fairly recently, but in late August. And it's just called Gunung Padang, What Archaeology Really Says. And he does a great job of breaking down the real site, you know, and what is really there and what's not really there. I will definitely link this article at the bottom of this podcast so you guys can go further in depth if you want. He has some really great drawings there of what this type of structure would really be. And he goes through like the history of the research there. It was originally found, I believe, in 1915, right? It's been generally known for a really long time. But he goes through it and talks about the real age of what this stuff probably is. You know, dates like the very earliest like human settlement, you know, there, or human interaction with that area that you find archaeologically. Maybe right around the time of Christ, maybe a tick before, you know, maybe 500 BC. There's stuff that dates, you know, 500 AD. And as one of the true sadnesses of pseudoarchaeology, you just have all this pure bullshit that layers over this real and interesting archaeological past. No, it's not 25,000 years old. No, it's not a pyramid, but it is an interesting structure that's 2,000 years old, that's on top of a natural hill. Like, that's cool. And it is sizable. It's not just some little tiny building or something. It is a interesting sort of multi-platform structure at the top of this natural outcrop. And that's great. You know, that's really interesting stuff. And he, of course, goes on to break down the geology of the area and the archaeology of the area. And man, I got to say, Carl, nice work, my friend. Just really well written, very understandable, very thoughtful article. I highly recommend. It just cuts through all the crap. You know, it's refreshing. Way better written than the other articles that we've been talking about. Speaking of which, when we come back, the worst bits of this. Yes, we haven't got there yet.
The Labor Day weekend sale is on at Tanger Outlets. Score up to 70% off at top brands like Nike Factory Store, Crocs, J. Crew Factory, Gap Outlet, and so many more. Refresh your wardrobe with the latest arrivals for less from all your favorite brands this Labor Day weekend. Tanger Outlets, always on trend, always on sale. Plan your trip at Tanger.com.
Ready to level up your career? Text DISH to 44043 now to dive into a world of exciting technician opportunities at DISH. From cutting-edge technology to a supportive work environment, DISH offers the perfect platform for your success. Connect with us today to discover how you can be part of a dynamic team driving innovation. Connect today and join the DISH family, where innovation meets opportunity. Text DISH to 44043 to kickstart your journey towards a rewarding career.
The Labor Day weekend sale is on at Tanger Outlets. Score up to 70% off at top brands like Nike Factory Store, Crocs, J. Crew Factory, Gap Outlet, and so many more. Refresh your wardrobe with the latest arrivals for less from all your favorite brands this Labor Day weekend. Tanger Outlets, always on trend, always on sale. Plan your trip at Tanger.com.
All right. Hello and welcome back one last time to the Pseudoarchaeology Podcast, episode 129. And we are wrapping up the Gunung Padang non-pyramid. So I was saying we haven't got to the worst bits. There are a couple extremely damning little bits and bobs here that we'll touch on in a minute. Before we do, I do want to talk about sort of the platform structure, right? The actual structure. again, do look at Carl Feagans' article. It really has good images of this, but to see it in your mind's eye, do picture like the top of a hill or sort of like the top of a ridge. And right when you're near the very top, you kind of have a series of sort of platforms of sizable platforms that kind of step up one at a time. You know, picture like a tennis court and then like another tennis court, you know, a couple feet above, then like another tennis court, if that makes sense. That kind of feel where you haven't created the whole mountain. Why would you? Right? If you're building an imposing structure, why would you like start at the bottom with bricks when you have a big ass mountain right over there? You know, you're going to use it. I've seen this multiple times in other places in the world. I've totally seen this in the Maya world where they will, it's like terraforming. Basically, they'll terraform the top of a hill, right? They'll like flatten the top of a hill, and then they'll build a pyramid on top of the hill, sort of continuing the angle of the hill, if that makes sense. So when you come up to it, it looks super imposing because it is, right? The pyramid looks 100 feet tall, but the actual built part of the pyramid might be only 30 feet, right? The other 70 feet is a natural hill, but it gives you that entire view of a tall structure. That's the same kind of thing that's happening here. They're using the natural geography in their favor, right? And they're going to build at a high, imposing place where you can look out, and it just has this like feeling of power and authority. That's what you want, you know? Makes total sense. So we have this really cool structure that has been totally maligned in terms of people trying to say that the natural volcanic hill that it's built on is part of the entire structure. It's just foolish. And that's 25,000 years old or whatever. It's just not. The most damning bits to this. Okay. The main scientist here, we might have to use scientist a bit in quotes, Danny Hillman Nadawajaja, a book he wrote in 2013. The title is Plato Never Lied. Atlantis is in Indonesia. Yep. So you see right there where he's coming from. You're like, oh, Lord. And then on top of that, one of my other favorite tidbits, if you don't believe that this is fake, in their excavations, they found a coin. They found a Dutch coin that dates somewhere between 1914 and 1945, right? So they found a 100-year-old Dutch coin. And they refuse to say that it's a Dutch coin. They label it an amulet and say that it's 7,000 years old. And when pressed, like, but this looks an awful lot like a Dutch coin, the answer is, you can guess this with me. Well, the Dutch actually used ancient amulets as models for their coins. Dude. Oh. I'm sorry. I had a small aneurysm just then. I can't feel the left side of my body after that. I mean, you can't be healthy after that one. I'm sorry. It's really, let's be honest, it's not healthy to listen to this podcast. It is literally bad, but it's bad for your brain health. So the last bit of this, you know, if that isn't bad enough, that might be the bottom of the barrel. But one thing that really bums me out is the article that was more for the general public, the one that Graham Hancock linked to, is not the scientific article. It's this other one in Sciencealert. And the title is Giant Pyramid Buried in Indonesia Could Be the Oldest in the World. Man, see, there's so much wrong with just the title. Giant Pyramid? No. Buried? No. Yes, it's in Indonesia. Could be the oldest in the world? No. It starts with utter bullshit. And then it just fills it all in. This is lazy reporting, you know, where it takes as sacrosanct this information is all true. And it just does this deep dive. And it's like, oh, yes, it's meticulously sculpted. You have stuff that dates from before the last glacial period, all of this. It goes in. There's nothing about, well, maybe it's nothing, so this kills me, because if you read an article like this, it's written very seriously. It's got good images, very straightforward. And anyone from the general public who reads this is just going to think it's true. Like, if I was 18 before I went to college and studied archaeology, right? If I read this article, I'd be like, oh yeah, well, that's a thing. Like, that's okay. Gunung Padang is an ancient pyramid, much older than all Egyptian pyramids. And it's not, right? At all. Not even a little. Like, I hope that I've kind of broken down there for you why this is just, again, complete bullshit, and it is a waste of our lives. It's a waste of our time. And it's sad, and I joked on the description of this podcast, I was like, well, after this, I'm gonna have to spend a generation having people come up to me and go, yeah, but what about that pyramid in Indonesia? And I guarantee you that will happen, and I'll have to debunk it again and again and one more time. And I will, because that's my job and I don't mind doing that. I'm happy to teach people stuff, but it's just so sad that their mind has just been filled with fake crap, and it is in these moments where I'm just, where it does make me angry towards Graham Hancock, because it is such a public disservice. So with that said, I think it's time for a warm round of applause for all of the researchers on this project. They get congratulations all around. Congratulations to them. They dated a mountain. And with that, I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for listening to the Pseudoarchaeology podcast. Please like and subscribe wherever you like and subscribe. And if you have questions for me, Dr. Andrew Kinkella, feel free to reach out using the links below, or go to my YouTube channel, Kinkella Teaches Archaeology. See you guys next time.
This episode was produced by Chris Webster from his RV traveling the United States, Tristan Boyle in Scotland, DigTech LLC, Culturo Media, and the Archaeology Podcast Network, and was edited by Rachel Roden.
This has been a presentation of the Archaeology Podcast Network. Visit us on the web for show notes and other podcasts at www.archpodnet.com. Contact us at chris@archaeologypodcastnetwork.com.